what's the relationship when you have women in governance?
Right.
Look at the shows countries, more women in governance have been countries that have done well. And let's take ourselves to COVID-19. The countries that were able to effectively manage the COVID-19 crisis were actually countries that were led by women, the likes of New Zealand, Germany, and all of that. Another thing also is that the standard of living also affects how the number of women were able to into offices. Remember, when you're talking about Human Development Index, you're talking about healthcare, you're talking about and all of that. We're having a situation whereby a lot of women aren't educated. They are not allowed to go to school. Girls, when they are making choices, they would rather send their male children. They feel those are the ones that are going to bear the family name. Some of them will tell you that, oh, women are going to get married, and then they don't allow them to go to school. Beyond that, also for those who have gone to school, you see a woman would have finished, she gets married, and the man sits down with all sense of entitlement, telling her that she can't work, she should just stay at home and not do anything. And so along the way also, this also affects the number of women that we're able to get into office, because it requires money. Most women are not allowed to build their wealth, and their families let them know. Even a car, you see some families tell you, oh, if you buy a car, who is going to marry you? Or no, you have to wait until you get to your husband's house before you start acquiring wealth. And if you don't have this wealth, how are you going to do politics? Especially in a country like Nigeria, where it is the candidates who are running for office who actually bring the money, and people who are donating to the lost a lot in terms of where we are. And it's almost like it's the case of what do you call it now? The case of how do I put it? Egg and the chicken, which comes first? Having women that we ensure we get that good governance, a good country, or is it one country we begin to get that we are looking for? Yeah, I hope I was able to answer that question.
Yeah, you answered it brilliantly. Trust you. Well, like I told you, she's been described as intelligent, knowledgeable, very, very, very passionate about the progress of the people. The people are her most driving passion into better educated women and those ones being shut out. And we saw an ugly situation from Boko Haram. In fact, that's what it means. Education, Western education is bad. If Western education was bad, why wasn't it bad for the boys? They targeted the girls, picked up those Chibok girls. We all know the story. This is hitting the 11th year. One proactive Nigerian citizen, along with some other very compassionate women, talking about Aisha Yesufu, set up the movement called Bring Back Our Girls. Yes, she's the co-founder of the Bring Back Our Girls movement. They struggled so hard, they made it a national movement, then they internationalized the movement. And as you can see, it has led to the actual release of quite a number of the girls, but about 80-something are still in captivity in the bush. Aisha, just give us a little recap of that, your journey, and what it took for you to actually start that interventionist movement. Can you hear me?
I heard you talking about Bring Back Our Girls. I
Yes.
can't get the question.
The question is what it took for you to set up that movement, and what it took for you to make the progress you've made thus far.
Okay. So I did a movement. So I joined Nigeria. In a way, so let me explain. The Bring Back Our Girls, when the abduction happened, first of all, the military had come out to say a few days that they had all the girls except 8. So I was one of them, like, okay, in no time they're going to bring the rest of the girls. So it kind of mindset to me, those girls are not back and there's going to be a campaign for them. So I joined the very first day of the movement going on, and it was supposed to be a one-day campaign, which was one day come in, do protest, and then go home. At that moment, one of the leaders of the Chibok community in Abuja, Mr. Hosea Stambido, who is late now, knelt down it rained that day, knelt down in front of Dr. Obiese Kwesile and said, please don't leave us. If you go away, the government is not going to do anything about this thing. And we're standing there, and the question was asked, should we continue? Should we keep coming until the girls are brought back? And that was how protest became a movement. And we're like, yes, we're not leaving here until all the girls were brought back. I knew that we were going to stay 10 years and there will still be some girls in captivity. It took 2 years before we saw the first in May 2016. The first thing that made me to go to make demands for those girls was because I felt if anybody abducts my children, I'm going to be on the streets. I'm not going to be at home. I'm not going to be waiting for whatever. I'm going to shout, scream, and make demands for my children to be brought back home.
Yes.
But a month or more into the movement, I realized that I was no longer there because of my children. I was there because of the little girl that I used to be. In 1991, which was, I think, as of that time, it was 21 years, 23 years after I had written my SSC exam. 1991, I was writing the same exam that the Chibok girls were writing. And I grew up in a community that was poor. I grew up poor. My father had nurse. I would go to school in the morning with her breakfast. I wasn't expecting lunch. And I lived in a place where by the age of 12, all my friends married off.
Yes.
And people mocked me. They made my exam. My parents would not have been able to say anything because in Nigeria, when you are poor, you're faceless, nameless, and voiceless. You're not seen as a human being. And so for me, I stood there, I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. And I'm still wearing my badge even up to today. Because for me, is that if I fail the poor girls, then that means I have failed. Used to be that used to cry for help and nobody was there to help her. Because I remember how I used to cry to people to please give me textbook when I was writing that exam so that I'll be able to read and write my SSC. I didn't have those textbooks. Right. I was begging for a Babio, a chemistry textbook and all of that. So for me, it became a personal thing, a passionate thing that this is who I once was. And teenager at the atrocities that were happening in Nigeria, at the poverty, at the fact that we are not seen as human beings. And for me, just seeing everything. Now, when I turned 40, I realized that I also had become the problem of Nigeria. And how did I become the problem of Nigeria? By my silence, Cody. Yes. For a long time to come,
Oh, well, your big mouth is really making effect because I would like to tell you, Aisha Yesufu has been nominated as one of the top 100 African women of influence. She's also been nominated as one of the top 200 women globally. Her page on Twitter has millions of followers. People wake up in the morning and go to you, the good, the bad, the ugly. Some abuse her. Yeah, that's part of influencing people. Well, we also want a special anti-robbery squad of the Nigeria that you'd hit on the youths, then you'd now more or less label them, and they were so brutal. So it was that police brutality about that special squad that got the youths really angry after the deaths of so many in police custody. And they decided to go on a nationwide protest movement with no leaders. That was the rule. But one woman stood up as a mother, and she came out, participated actively in the protest, and also kept advising the youths. Even though they had no leadership, she provided that leadership kind of mother figure and leadership figure. Aisha Yesufu, tell us what it was like holding it together during that anti-SARS protest, which today has resulted in a whole lot of success, even if some people will discredit it. Tell us what that experience was like. And then you can...
Oh my goodness, that was also something else. One thing I didn't mention though,
yes.
At the Bring Back Our Girls movement, I was the from I think around June 2014. Then from there I became the lead, the strategic team leader of the movement. So I was Bring Back Our Girls movement for I think about 4 or 5 years. I'm not sure now. And so that's all when people talk about the movement and trying to denigrate it and say, oh, it went this, it did this. I'm like, no, this is a movement that I led. When Dobby stepped down, she handed over to me, became the leader. We were funded. We were the ones who did our own. We refused to collect money from anyone. It was members that did that for themselves. And
Yes.
what we always talk, it was your empathy that we needed to have there. Coming back, I just add that a little bit more. Coming back to NSAS, oh my goodness. At any time, sister, I doff my hat to the Nigerian youth. The Nigerian youth told us what Nigeria be if we allow them to thrive. These are that unfortunately we have failed. We've not given them enabling environment for them to thrive. In spite of that, they found niches for themselves and they continue to thrive in the world of technology. I and guess what? The country was coming then. It's the fact that as a young person, the moment you have a moment you're clean looking, the moment you have